I was at the inquiry on Tuesday night, and Joel talked about gratitude, and it's something that I'm really intrigued by, how we enter sort of more fully an embodied sense of what gratitude is and how gratitude might support us in our lives and support us in our practice. So I'm very grateful for having a system that can function quite well at 3 o'clock in the morning with sometimes coherent thoughts. So this is where this started. Um, I want to read to start by reading a poem by W.S. Merwin, which I'm sure many of you will know, but it's a poem that really speaks to me about the way in which gratitude um, can be about our whole life, not just about the good things. So he starts. It's called Thanks. Listen, with the night falling, we are saying thank you. We are stopping on the bridges to bow from the railings. We are running out of glass rooms with our mouths full of food to look at the sky and say thank you. We are standing by the water thinking it, standing by the windows looking out in our directions. Back from a series of hospitals, back from a mugging, after funerals, we are saying thank you. After news of the dead, whether or not we knew them, we are saying thank you. Over telephones, we are saying thank you. In doorways and in the backs of cars and in elevators, remembering wars and the police at the door and the beatings on the stairs, we are saying thank you. In the banks, we are saying thank you. In the faces of the officials and the rich and of all who will never change, we go on saying thank you, thank you. With the animals dying around us, taking our feelings, we are saying thank you. With the forests falling away faster than the minutes of our lives, we are saying thank you. With the words going out like the cells of a brain, with the cities growing over us, we are saying thank you, faster and faster. With nobody listening, we are saying thank you, thank you. We are saying, and waving, dark though it is. And there's something about the finding the capacity to say thank you, even as the bombs are falling or coming back from the hospital or whatever, in the face of greed or whatever, finding ways to say thank you. And I'm really curious. It feels like it's a real thread in my own practice, about what it might feel like to rest into being gratitude. You know, at the end of the 4 practice principles, we say being compassion's way. Well, what would it be like to say being gratitude's way? And how we might find gratitude not just for the particular, but how to have gratitude for everything, everything. Dictionaries often define being grateful as having a sense of thankfulness that comes from within, a feeling within. So gratitude is a feeling. It often moves into action, but it's a feeling. And sometimes I've heard, clients say, I should be grateful. I think, well, you're clearly not. Because it's like that I should be grateful is not the embodied experience of gratitude, which is a really different kind of feeling, which softens us and opens us up. And for me, it has a quality of diminishing my contraction and my sense of kind of being just this little self into a much bigger kind of experience of the world. Um, And for me, an embodied sense of gratitude can connect us really deeply with awe and mystery, to use one of Flint's favourite phrases, you know, to lean into the fact that this whole messy miracle of being human, that we can have gratitude for that, for the messiness of our lives, for the imperfection of our lives. Um, Flint has got a beautiful piece on his website, on his blog, about gratitude. So I'm quoting some of the things that he says in that because it really weaves into how I've been thinking about it. He says in that piece, when you focus more on what you have than what you want, a special abundance is created. Happiness is indeed wanting exactly what you already have. Maybe gratitude is also wanting and being glad and grateful for exactly what you already have. When we take time to recognize and actively give thanks for all the goodness that is, we complete the circle that begins with the asking and receiving. I've been focusing myself in my own practice on how I might open more and more to this really embodied sense of gratitude, that it's my body that feels it, not an activity of my mind. And as I've been doing that, it feels like it's kind of part of the weaving of many threads of turning towards life as it is, of self and other compassion, of moving away from the self-centered dream, of sitting practice, sangha, interconnectedness, are codependent co-arising. And I was thinking about when I used to teach counselling. You know, we talked about the three core conditions, and we broke them down. Like, you can learn empathy, and you can learn unconditional positive regard, and you can learn congruence. But the reality what always was that skillful practice was always an art and a shifting blend of those qualities. So I see the way in which gratitude is kind of like, it's not a separate activity. It's actually a kind of shifting part of our entire practice. Um, I notice a really profound change for myself in my relationship to the wider world when I started a gratitude practice in my shower. Me and my shower are really good friends, and I shower every day. And in my somewhat chaotic life, it is something I do every day. So it seemed like a really good place to have that kind of steady practice and a starting the day thing. So I started by feeling grateful for just to have a shower in a bathroom that had been taught to us to put in, had involved so much more than we ever planned. But the builder said very confidently when he was building it, you'll look back on this and all you'll remember is how lovely this is. You'll just do it. And it was true. It was awful, and now it's lovely. Um, so I started by feeling grateful just for having the shower and that whole process of moving through the hot water. You know, we have hot water. What a blessing. What a blessing hot water is. And I have a body that I can currently negotiate still getting in and out of the shower. And when I've done things like broken my leg or broken my arm, I've realized, you know, that's a thing. Just being able to get in and out of the shower is a thing. So I'm deeply grateful for having a body that at this moment in time can get in and out. And then somehow it sort of bled into thinking about all the people who'd built my house over 100 years ago. And they would have no idea how it would be lived in, how long it would be used for, who would be in it. But they built it to be something solid and beautiful. And they built it anyway, um, not knowing who was going to be in it or how it was going to be used. And I thought of the navvies coming over from Ireland who dug the roads, you know, and they dug them and they dug up the clay, which made the pipes, which allowed us to have drainage. You know, thank you, Victorians. It's like there's this sense in which standing in my shower, I become connected to history, to people making things and doing things that have nothing to do with me. They weren't making, they're saying, we're making this for you, Trudy. You know, you deserve it. It's kind of completely impersonal, but it completely supports my life. So I was really touched when Joel said on Tuesday, you know, most of the work in the world is done by people who probably aren't feeling so well. You know, so it's like all of those people doing all of that activity. And standing here, I'm a recipient of all of that, which includes the rain, you know, which has come down, which includes to become my shower water, and the sun's warmth, which allows us to live on what would otherwise be a dead planet. And all the people at the moment who are managing the wastewater systems and making my soap and putting my soap on a lorry to be delivered somewhere. It's like, just for me, the whole sense of standing there in the water, feeling this wider and wider and wider web of connection, where in the end, nothing can be left out. There's nothing that can be left out of that circle of gratitude. And that is, I just keep having that. I'm sitting on a sofa and then I can kind of think, you know, somebody made this fabric. Somebody who didn't know I would be sitting on this sofa made this fabric so I can sit here. Somebody made the springs. They came from the earth in the wire and the metal. And there's just something about that practice that I find incredibly opening. And a while ago, I was also really struck by, some of you may have heard it, a wonderful, deeply touching talk by Abbot Steve Stuckey, who gives a talk just days, literally days after receiving his his diagnosis of stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and he details the journey of moving from some discomfort to extreme pain, and he was saying at the beginning of that he'd had a practice for a long time of waking up and sitting up at the edge of his bed and putting his hands together and bowing and saying grateful, not for anything in particular, but just for breathing and welcoming whatever would unfold. And he says about that, the practice of gratitude for me begins simply with saying the word gratitude and allowing whatever arises in thought to be regarded as lovable, no matter who or what that might be. This immediately cuts off the mind of personal preference and acknowledge that everything, absolutely everything, is fully participating in the fact of my existence in this moment. The challenge of this practice often slaps me in the face and sets off a series of impossible barriers. And it reminds me that, you know, Dharma gates are endless, that life is a constant fluid invitation to get into a relationship with whatever is unfolding. Enlightenment is intimacy with everything, and to be intimate we have to turn towards it. And another one of Flint's favourite quotes, which is, "Thank you very much, I have no complaints whatsoever." I think that's oh my Lord. Well, that's a pretty big challenge, isn't it? To have no complaints whatsoever. So I want to tell you a little story, and it's real, but it's become a story for me because it kind of illustrates something to me about what happens to me when I'm caught in the self-centered dream, you know, deeply embedded in it. Some years ago, Flint was coming to Lancaster to lead a retreat, and I was in a pretty persistent funk of grumpiness and self-depreciation, and had managed to convince myself that Flint thought that Josh was a proper student and I wasn't, which actually is probably true. But anyway, I wasn't doing very well with it. And shortly after Flint had arrived, I said I was going to go and get flowers for the Zendo, and historically we'd sometimes gone together to get the flowers. And so I asked him if he'd like to come, and he said no, he had something to do with Josh, which was, of course, perfect ammunition for my grumbling. So off I set, you know, disconsolately stomped into town and got the flowers. And when I got back, there was no, oh, hurrah, Trudy, well done, you know, but more secretive mutterings and more going on without me. And I was deeply, deeply engaged with this particular pit of misery and complaint. Anyway, boys, all the boys, anyway. um, when Josh came back from town with a beautiful print, and they'd been choosing something for me, knowing that I wasn't doing very well. And it stopped me in my tracks, and it still does. It still does stop me in my tracks of like completely cutting through this story that I was telling, and that what was going on was love and not exclusion. Um, and it's been something that's kind of, I keep having that sense of, I don't know what's going on. I don't have to know what's going on, and I can still be grateful. And Flint recalls in a very similar moment, which I'm sure some of you have heard him talk about, when he too was in a funk of self-depreciation, too old, never going to cut it, never work with the masters, all of that. And he got jolted out of it by Huetsu Suzuki, who was arriving at the temple he was working at. And he smiled at him and fully offered his presence and went into the temple. And Flint says, I learned something essential in that brief and unexpected meeting. The heart of practice is simple gratitude. It's not revealed in complicated teachings or impenetrable stories of our ancestors. A moment of profound meeting is in the most ordinary way, contains everything that is necessary. A moment of profound meeting in the most ordinary way contains everything that is necessary. I'm deeply grateful for having been shown this, and I began to see that the quality of gratitude I discovered was not the ordinary thank you or customary appreciation for a precious gift received or something special achieved. Instead, it was the profound and almost unspeakable appreciation for life, exactly as it is. It was the deep realization that our very existence is a mystery, and this fact of being alive is a gift beyond measure. And maybe we're used to finding gratitude. You know, lots of us can do that. We can, the small things, bird songs, the snowdrops, aren't they lovely? You know, an unexpected smile, a jar of sticky marmalade sent in appreciation of a job well done. And it's often so much more challenging for us to find an embodied experience of gratitude for difficulty or sorrow. And my experience of practice is to try and make a big enough container to hold the allness of our experience. When Steve Stuckey was talking just days after his diagnosis, he talked about the beautiful x-rays of his damaged lungs and of the terrible, unmanageable pain that was being held by the marvel of drugs. He didn't sugarcoat the pain. Gratitude for him wasn't about minimizing or denying his suffering, but turning towards it and finding gratitude in all the support within the experience. And it's this opening up to the wholeness of our experience of life that can reveal our deep connectedness. I think as I'm approaching my 7th decade, I've had a life full of delights and challenges and considerable amount of complaining. But I can really see that there isn't a single moment or anything that I could subtract or change from the threads that I'm being constantly woven by, and that I'm part of this immense tapestry. I can't pull a single thread and go, that one, if that one wasn't there, everything would be all right. It's like the whole thing is in this living, dynamic tapestry that we're all weaving with each other. And I can see how complaining doesn't serve me. It changes nothing. It just usually invites me into the pit. So to be able to say, this isn't okay, I'm suffering, I'm sad, um, I'm hurting, is not the same as complaining. It's just facing forward into what we actually feel, what's actually happening. Flint has one of his many little phrases, which is, I can't quite remember, but it's something like, if you get into an argument with life, life will win. It's like there's no point in getting into an argument with life. Life is always going to just do what it does. And he says then, gratitude is much closer to relinquishment than it is to attainment. We seem to be most in touch with the heart of gratitude as we relinquish our self-centered ideas about how life should be or how we would like it to turn out. As our ideals and models for some fantasized spiritual life fall away, sometimes through active letting go, in practice, and sometimes because life simply defeats our hopes and dreams, we are left with the bare essentials of living: our breath, our beating heart, the wind, the birds, the sun and the moon. And it is the ongoing release of our ideas about life that allows life to come to us just as it is. We then experience the simple gratitude of this immense and incomprehensible gift. Some of you will, I think, know the work of John O'Donoghue, who writes beautiful blessings, and he has a blessing for those who are suffering. When the reverberations of shock subside in you, may grace come restore you to balance. May it shape a new space in your heart to embrace this illness as a teacher who has come to open your life to new worlds. May you find yourself in a courageous hospitality towards what is difficult, painful, and unknown. May you find in yourself a courageous hospitality towards what is difficult, painful, and unknown. Which I just love, that idea that gratitude is a way, is a kind of courageous hospitality towards that which we might not actually be wanting. Flint says the simple gratitude of existence eventually reveals itself as profound self-acceptance. For me, we live in a complex world of inequality, hurt and struggle. And when we can tend towards gratitude for what we have, especially for those of us in a first world setting, I think that the wider sense that gratitude opens us can allow us to feel our privilege and feel care for those who don't have access to everything we have. And I think gratitude then is an integral part of this interconnectedness. Gratitude isn't gratitude just because I have a lovely house. It's gratitude for shelter, wherever that is. And I think that gratitude also supports me to turn towards the vast mystery that is our life. There are certain things that I think sometimes that just make me feel amazed. I don't know, some of you probably know this, but if you live an average life, 60 odd plus years, your kidneys, every time you breathe in, they move up your body. And every time you breathe out, they move down your body. You don't know you're doing that. They just do that little kidney thing. Over your lifetime, they're going to cover about 4 kilometers, just moving up and down in your body. And that goes on without anything to do with you. If you live an average life, your heart is going to beat about 2.5 billion times. 2.5 billion times. It's doing it right now. Right now. This little muscle that's inside you that just does its job from the moment we're born to the moment we stop. And your body is doing that, however fit or rackety or not doing so well, it's working its little socks off. What's not to be grateful for in that? So when you can come to appreciate life just as it is, then the actions that arise from that come from that open, generous place. If you can have some faith in the formless field of benefaction or the merciful ocean of Buddha's way, if you can have some sense of that, then you can rest a little more into the wideness, the width of our life, rather than our little contracted worlds. And of course, we will feel the contraction and the clinging. Of course, we will, again and again and again. And then breathing out, maybe we can feel a little gratitude for the 2,000 years of dedicated practice by so many billions and billions of heartbeats that have allowed us to sit together, that have carried the Dharma forward with such integrity and care that you are now adding to, that you are now inevitably, whether you feel it or not, part of that vast web of connectedness. And who knows, in the future, people will be sitting there thinking they carried that forward too. The unknown gratitude of the future and the unknown gratitude for the past. And I'm just so grateful for my Sangha. I'm so grateful to all of you and to all of the many teachers that I've had the vast good fortune, including the painful ones. And I would like to offer you all a deep bow of gratitude. Thank you so much.